Chances are, you're probably familiar with the story of the Titanic. But what if we told you that everything you think you know about the famous crash may be a lie? In this video, we're going to expose new scientific findings that reveal the truth about the ship that shook the world. At 11:40 p.m. on April 14, 1912, the RMS Titanic was involved in a catastrophic accident. The ship's crew and passengers were thrown into chaos as they scrambled to evacuate the sinking vessel. Within 3 hours, the boat vanished beneath the icy surface of the Atlantic Ocean. The tragedy ultimately claimed the lives of more than 1,500 people. For over 100 years, the cause of this disaster was believed to be an iceberg the ship crashed into. But the evidence covered in this video may just change your mind. The Titanic was not only a marvel of engineering, but also a symbol of the wealth and power of the early 20th century. The construction of the Titanic began in 1909 in the shipyards of Harland and Wolff in Belfast, Northern Ireland. It was commissioned by the White Star Line, a British shipping company looking to build the world's largest and most luxurious ship. The famous naval architect Thomas Andrews designed the vessel, incorporating the latest technology and safety features into the design. The Titanic was a massive ship measuring over 880 feet long and 175 feet tall. It had 9 decks and could accommodate up to 2,435 passengers and 892 crew members. Over 15,000 men worked around the clock for nearly 3 years to build such a colossal vessel. They used cutting-edge techniques such as riveting and welding to construct the hull and the ship's superstructure. It was fitted with every luxury and convenience that the most discerning travelers could desire, including an ensuite bathrooms, a swimming pool, a private gym, a Turkish bath, and a squash court. Just as impressive was the cost of the ship. Built at an estimated cost of $7.5 million in 1912, today it will cost roughly $400 million to construct. The ship's maiden voyage was highly anticipated, as it was said to be a triumph of human ingenuity and engineering. Thanks to its state-of-the-art watertight compartments and cutting-edge safety features, the Titanic was touted as unsinkable. Moreover, it was expected to make the transatlantic crossing from Southampton, England to New York City in record time, cementing its place as the crown jewel of the White Star Line's fleet. Unfortunately, throughout the building process, 8 people died and 246 were injured. Considering the massive size of the ship, it's hard to imagine that such a feat of engineering could be destroyed by just one iceberg. However, new scientific findings lead us to believe that the actual cause of the Titanic's destruction wasn't ice, but fire. A journalist named Sam Maloney had been studying the details of the Titanic's demise for over 30 years. One day, Maloney was examining a photo taken before the Titanic's departure. He discovered a mysterious 30-foot-long black spot on the hull of the ship. Shocked, Maloney continued investigating various images of the Titanic from its construction to its completion. He concluded that the streak in the photograph might have been caused by a fire in one of the Titanic's coal bunkers. This fire was burning for up to 3 weeks before the Titanic's departure. Metallurgy experts are sure that such conditions could have easily weakened the metal by as much as 75%. Unfortunately, the exact area where the metal had weakened is where the iceberg hit and created a gaping hole in the ship. Had this fire not occurred, there would have been no chance the iceberg could have caused that level of damage. What's even more astonishing is that the management of the project knew about the fire. Of course, the Titanic should never have set sail in the first place, but the risk was dismissed by fear of bad press and a desire to keep the ship on schedule. So instead of fixing the issue, management requested that the liner be flipped around so no passengers could see the cosmetic damage from the fire. On the inside, the Titanic seemingly had everything. But what if we told you it was missing one crucial piece of equipment? You see, in 1912, sonar technology had yet to be invented. The ship's crew relied on appointed lookouts to keep watch of the treacherous waters using binoculars. Unfortunately, the Titanic's one pair of binoculars had been locked away in a special compartment. David Blair, the officer in charge of the key, was replaced moments before the ship's departure, and he forgot to give the key to his replacement. This mistake wasn't discovered until 3 days into the ship's journey. Perhaps, if the crew had access to the ship's binoculars, they could have spotted the iceberg and avoided the crash. Instead, the crew only had 30 seconds between the first sighting of the iceberg to the collision. This was barely enough time for lookout Frederick Fleet to call the bridge and proclaim, "Iceberg, right ahead!" Another crucial detail about this fatal night is the ship's speed. Some experts believe the ship's captain, Edward J. Smith, was pushing the Titanic's speed to beat the crossing time of the Olympic, the Titanic's older sibling in the White Star Fleet. For some, the fact that the Titanic was sailing full speed ahead, despite multiple iceberg reports, was Captain Smith's biggest mistake. Other experts believe the Titanic's steersman accidentally turned the ship toward the iceberg. That's the claim made in 2010 by Louise Patton, who said the story was passed down from her grandfather, the most senior ship officer to survive the disaster. Patton said that after the iceberg was spotted, the command was issued to turn hard starboard, but as the order was passed down the line, it was misinterpreted as meaning "make the ship turn right," rather than "push the tiller right to make the ship head left." The error was quickly discovered, but not quickly enough to avert the collision. Patton also speculated that if the ship had stopped where it was hit, seawater would not have pushed into one interior compartment after another as it did, and the ship might not have sunk as quickly. Undoubtedly, the biggest tragedy is that there were not enough lifeboats to save the Titanic's more than 2,200 passengers and crew members. The lifeboats could accommodate only about 1,200 people, which was still over the legal requirement for that time. To save all the people on board, the Titanic would have needed around 60 lifeboats. The chief designer, Alexander Carlisle, planned to equip the ship with 64 lifeboats, but eventually the number was reduced to 20 because the owners thought the deck looked too cluttered. Additionally, Captain Smith cancelled the routine emergency lifeboat drill on the day of the crash. Nobody knows the reason for his decision, especially considering that other ships had passed iceberg warnings to the Titanic days prior. This lack of preparation may be why it took the crew half an hour to launch the lifeboats instead of the usual 10 minutes. Some experts also blame Captain Smith for allowing the first wave of lifeboats to depart half empty. The first boat with 65 seats contained only 27 people because the passengers were initially reluctant to leave the ship, not realizing their lives were in danger. As the Titanic sank to the bottom of the ocean, the crew shot several flares into the sky. However, a ship sailing nearby, the Californian, ignored the repeated distress signals. When this information came out, the captain of the Californian was publicly ridiculed and even lost his job. But modern researchers believe the captain wasn't guilty of neglecting the Titanic's distress signals. Instead, the reason nobody noticed the signals from the Titanic could be due to a phenomenon known as light refraction. When light passes from one medium to another, such as from air to water or from air to glass, the speed of light changes, causing it to bend or change direction. This bending of light is called refraction. In simple terms, light refraction creates illusions at sea. Several other ships reported seeing similar mirages while sailing through the area. Unfortunately, nobody on the Californian would have likely been able to see the Titanic's flares. So, whether it was fire, ice, criminal negligence, or just plain bad luck, the mystery of the Titanic continues to captivate the minds of researchers worldwide. Which theory do you believe? Let us know in the comments below.